Hey, what's up, everybody? Look, I just finished up a 30-minute live stream here on the YouTube channel where we went over the entire crypto market, going over Bitcoin and altcoins, what I'm buying, when I'm buying, and so much more. And I was like, you know what? This is actually a really good segment of analysis. I'm going to kind of put this together as a video for you all, just in case you missed it. And so the next segment that you're about to watch is a segment from that live stream where we did a full market analysis. So I hope you guys do enjoy it. And make sure you tune into the live streams when we do them. They are pretty fun. The chat's always crazy. It's usually a good time. So make sure you check them out. Turn on those notifications so you know when we go live, and let's go into this full market analysis. But let's go ahead and let's rock and roll. So what we can see is that the crypto market, let's see, over the last day, it has recovered a little bit. Been a very rocky couple days. Been a very rocky couple days. You look at the week, for example, things are looking good, but that last day things got a little bit shaky. Obviously, yesterday we did see Bitcoin's price pull back a decent amount, pretty quickly. I think at one point we saw Bitcoin's price fall. Yeah, we saw Bitcoin's price fall from like $105,000 to like $102,000 over the course of like 8 hours or so, roughly. And that obviously freaked a good bit of people out. People were a little bit confused and sketched out by this move right here. But I told you guys in yesterday's video, this one right here, over here, I told you guys, I said, listen, what's happening in crypto right now makes a ton of sense. Bitcoin's price just ran into an absolutely massive zone of resistance and it got rejected. So what's it going to do? It's going to come back down, try to find some macro support and try to use that support to break upwards. So what I'm going to do for you all this morning is I'm going to kind of reestablish what we talked about yesterday. I'll show you that resistance it ran into and I'll talk to you about what it's trying to do right now. Because one thing I will actually say is that right now we are seeing Bitcoin's price make a pretty important decision. It's ranging between two very important zones, one support zone and one resistance zone right up here. And I think Bitcoin is basically standing on a cliff right now. And it's just waiting to decide what side it's going to go from. Is it going to walk away from the cliff and start to move upwards, or are we about to jump off that cliff back down towards 100K? I think Bitcoin's about to make that decision. And so, yeah, today we're going to go over all of that. And then we're going to talk about how that, applies to our altcoin prices there. So shout out to you guys. I'm happy to see you. And I see the homie Keith D is in. Make sure you go check him out. He posted 2 videos yesterday, which we all saw. So feel free to go check him out. Adam, AK, I see you. I see you. Jose, welcome in, everybody. Abdullahi, Crypto Kardashian. Crazy name, but I love to see it. Good morning. Anyway, let's go ahead. Let's push into it, guys. So what happened over the last 24 hours? I think that's the first question that a lot of people have. And let me go ahead and reestablish that extremely closely. So the reason why Bitcoin's price made this move right here, boom, boom, is because Bitcoin got drawn back to a massive zone of resistance. What you guys have to understand is that resistance zone and support zones, just key zones of liquidity, they act like magnets. You're going to see the price of cryptos push up into them and push down into them just to test the waters a little bit, see where this market's at. You have these algorithmic trading bots that are triggering orders at these key levels. And so they're going to act like magnets. And that's what happened. Bitcoin's price was range bound right here. A key zone of resistance started to form right here, a strong level of liquidity, and it pulled Bitcoin's price up to it again, like a bit of a magnet. Now, you may wonder, Tyler, what was this resistance zone? What is this right here? Why did Bitcoin specifically come up to right around 106 to 107K before getting rejected? Well, there's actually short-term, mid-term, and long-term resistance that was all sitting in the same exact area, which is why I believe it magnetized it. The first key zone that we saw Bitcoin's price affected by, of course, if we go ahead, let me just kind of zoom out here for you, is we can see that we had this previous little bad boy right here. There we go. I don't know why my mouse is tripping, but anyway, so what we can see is that if we just go back and we draw in this and we go way back here, what you can see is that this was a very strong zone of support before like 2 days ago, right? So before we saw that capitulation on November 3rd and 4th, this was a key zone of support. You had support right here. You had support right here. 2 very strong zones of support. Some people would actually even say that Bitcoin created a head and shoulders pattern and it broke down from it. So naturally, this is now liquidity. That's a very strong zone of support. And that is going to be where a lot of these orders are going to be stacked up at, right? And so as Bitcoin's price starts to go range bound, boom, it's just going to get pulled up to the support to just test it a little bit. Can we just recover it? Can we get back above it and pretend like this never happened? Or are we going to start to get rejected by it, which is when things get a little bit spooky? Now, in addition to having this previous zone of support from right here and right here, we also had some macro resistance from this bad boy. So if I go back out, 1 second, let me, we'll stick to the 4-hour charts. That's fine. So what we can see is that we had that macro resistance. Let's actually go out to the dailies. It'll be easy for y'all to see it. So you see how we had all of this right here. We had this low, and then we had this low way back here. Boom. Okay, now let's go ahead and zoom in. So what you can see is that Bitcoin's price came back up and retested it. So over the last couple months, Bitcoin's price had been riding this trend. I mean, it had, established key zone of support number 1, key zone of support number 2, key zone of support number 3, was doing a really good job at trying to hold it right here, but did eventually fall. And after falling, Bitcoin's price broke through this zone to the downside. And of course, naturally, whenever you break through a support level, you're going to do what? You're going to back test, breakout back test. It's normal. Bob T, our good old pal. And we can see that's exactly what happened. We got the breakout, which is BO, and then we got the back test. That's Bob T. Okay, always expect a Bob T to happen in an instance like this. And so, yeah, Bitcoin's price broke back down, came back towards some of these lower levels, and pushed all the way back up to that key zone of resistance. And so, when you start to combine all of these things together, you're going to be in a situation which you have a massive, again, zone of resistance just sat directly on top of you, sitting directly ahead of you. And you just have to understand that, hey, this is going to be a difficult level for us to break back above, but it's all good. It's no problem. And, you're just going to get rejected from it. And so as Bitcoin's price ran into this key zone of resistance, what happened? And we saw the break back down towards the downside. And it's normal. Guys, it's normal. And it's kind of the whole point of what I'm trying to make about this move is like what Bitcoin did here was very normal. It came up to a major zone of resistance, got rejected. And then you have confluence whenever you look at your indicators. For example, what we can see is that if we go back down to our 4-hour RSI, look at how much strength it took from Bitcoin to even get back up to this key zone of resistance, right? We saw Bitcoin's price push all the way from the 23, all the way on the 4-hour to the 66, nearing that plus 70 zone before seeing a bit of a pullback. And the craziest part is that as we did put in this high, and this high, and then this high, and this high, we started to get bearish divergence, which was a sign that as we were hitting this resistance level, we were losing strength because it was very hard for the Bitcoin bulls to get the price up here. So naturally, they're going to need to slow down, cool down, let this market pull back a little bit, and then we'll see where we're going to go from there, right? It's very difficult to make a move like this back above that resistance unless you're in euphoria for some reason. A big news or big catalyst, big short squeeze, something like that would have to be happening. Yeah, it'd be quite difficult for Bitcoin's price to recover back above that level. And just to kind of add a little bit more layers of confluence on top of it, if you look at your Bollinger Bands, for example, what you can see on the 4-hour is that we pushed up into the top side of the Bollinger Bands. What does that mean? It means that when you're in the top side of this Bollinger Bands, you're due for a reversal back to the bottom side. And so all of these things say this. Bitcoin's price broke through some levels of support and came back down to a key liquidity zone right here, this yellow box. It then used this liquidity zone to maintain that support, pushed back up to key resistance to retest and see what the move was, right? What were things looking like right now? Are we going to be able to break back above all this resistance right here around $107,000, above $108,000, or are we going to get rejected back to the downside? Well, Bitcoin made its decision. Bitcoin's price was unable to break above it in this move, which is natural and normal. Then it started to come back towards the downside, okay? And now that it's coming back towards the downside, it's making another decision. Okay, now what? Because we only have two options here, right? Option number one is that Bitcoin's price comes back down, the bulls find some support, they regather some strength, and then they use that strength to break back above this level. That's option number one. And I would attest that this has a 60% chance of happening. Okay. Option number two is that Bitcoin's price is unable to hold this support and it pulls back through the downside. And this is an official breakout and back test. It is just a rejection. Bitcoin's price came back down, it went back up. It got the resistance, it flipped the support and resistance. So you got your SR flip, and your SR flip capitulated us back into a lower low. I would say that has a 40% chance of happening. So we're basically at a coin flip right now. This is just it's a coin flip with a little bit of bias, a little bit of bias towards the upside. Now, you may say, Tyler, why is there a bias towards the upside? Why is it more likely that Bitcoin does recover above this level? And it's mostly just due to these catalysts that we're seeing right now, right? Whenever you start to combine all of these catalysts together, what we're seeing macroeconomically, it seems like we're getting in a bit of a better position than we've been in the last week. And because of that, that obviously can have some lasting impacts here on the market. Now, in addition to that, when you go head over to the liquidation map, it also proves that there is a bit of a bias in the macro. When you head over to the 30-day on Bitcoin, for example, there are substantially more liquidations that'll rest to the top side. And so naturally, when you see that on Bitcoin, and whenever you see that on Ethereum, and I think it starts to get a little bit wobbly under that, though. No, you still see the same thing on Solana, still see the same thing on XRP. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as hype, but that's fine as well. But you can kind of see when you have substantially more liquidations to the top side, you are going to have a bias to the top side. Why? Because whales, market manipulators, centralized exchanges, market movers, they want to liquidate as many people as possible. And so what is in their best interest? Well, the price pushing upwards. So whatever is in their best interest is the direction that you're more likely to go in just a little bit, right? So it gives you that upside bias. And then the last thing I will actually say that I forgot to mention is like your daily RSI, for example. Although, yes, it has recovered a little bit back up to that 44 level, we have still opened up all this this door of opportunity upwards. There's much more opportunity above us than there is below us. And that doesn't mean that we can't go down. I'm just saying that as we go further and further down, a reversal back to the upside is becoming more and more likely. And so, because of all of these things, my general opinion here is that there is a bias upwards. That, yes, the market easily could start to capitulate back downwards because there is reason for that to happen, which I'll explain in a second. But there is still a bias upwards of 60% that we do start to push back towards the top side. Now, knowing that there is a 60% bias towards the upside, no, I'm not going to go ahead and make bets based on a 60% basis. I don't think that's a good idea. What do I mean by that? I mean, I'm not going to go in and I'm not going to start, opening up long trades right now. I'm not going to do big purchases right now because 60% isn't convincing enough for me, right? That's not a good enough odd in my favor. No, I like to invest whenever I have really good odds. And I don't have great odds right now. It's almost a coin flip. And I don't like gambling in this market when I know if I just hold long term, I'll make some more money. Another thing that I just noticed that I forgot to mention was the fact that we also have this resistance right here as well. There's also that descending resistance. So that's going to be just another obstacle in the way. And seeing that we do have a bit of an inflection point right here wouldn't surprise me if we push into that at some point. But anyway, because that's going to act like liquidity. Whatever. Anywho, so what does that mean? Again, that means we have a 60% chance. This starts to sketch me a little bit more. I would actually go ahead and say that we now have a 55% chance. I'm glad I recognize that. A 55% chance of the move upwards with a 45% chance of a move back towards the downside. I think that's kind of the odds here bias. Now, you may be wondering, Tyler, why do we have a 45% chance of moving back down towards some of these lower levels? What's going on here? Well, the reason why I say that is because, well, there's two pieces, of course, to that pie. First, there's the buy the rumor, sell the news. Okay. So there's a buy the rumor, sell the news event that could be brewing right now. And then we have downside liquidations. These are kind of the two things that are spooking me right now. So it does seem as if we are going to get the government shutdown ending over the next 24 hours or so. I know that the Senate, if I remember correctly, we just saw an advancement. I can go on Connor's Twitter, actually. Let's see. I just saw him post about it. The House advances, the House said, sorry. The Senate already did. The House advances government reopening bill 8-4, and then the full vote will be on Wednesday at 3 p.m. my time. So that's in 7 hours or so, roughly. So it feels like that government shutdown's coming to an end. So you never know if this market is going to pull back off of that, right? You see how we've seen the altcoin market, especially over the last week, really giving us some solid gains. That could easily be the market rallying up until this government shutdown ending, and then the government shutdown ending actually pulls this market back down. I'm not going to say that's going to happen. I actually just don't know what's going to happen, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend, guys. But it is a possibility, so it's something I'm concerned about. And then another thing I'm concerned about is on the downside liquidation side is the fact that if you head over to CoinGlass and go to the 7-day, so a little bit more of the midterm, you can see what's happening here. So there are still currently more downside liquidations on the midterm time frames. That applies to the 1-day, that applies to the 7-day as well, and that's applicable to basically every crypto right now. You look at Ethereum, more to the downside on the 7-day. Solana, more to the actually Solana just flipped this morning, which is interesting. Okay, that could start to be interesting. But again, XRP as well. You got XRP, you got Ethereum, you got BTC. They're all sitting with substantial downside liquidations pending a possible buy the rumor, sell the news event. And so when you mix the fact that both of those things can happen, this downside liquidation could actually happen as this being the disguise. So it could happen as we could see the government shutdown end, market manipulators pull this market back down to liquidate all of those people. They disguise it as the buy the rumor, sell the news event. The market then tries to find some more macro support, whether it be here, whether it be maybe around 90 to 93K, and then we start to try to rally upwards. I think that's a very real possibility, not the most likely possibility, but a very real possibility that I'm prepared for. And so knowing that we have that possibility on the table as well, you have to respect it. And you just have to understand that is a possibility and something that needs to be, again, respected. So I give it a 55% chance that this market does actually start to try to work its way up and that it does what it's supposed to do, right? The market in this scenario is supposed to recover back above resistance, and it is supposed to recover back above it, especially now that it is trying to create these reversal patterns and it has room to work on the dailies. So I still think that's what it's supposed to do, but there's a very real risk here, and that's because this market is manipulated, and this is scary. Okay. But one way or another, one thing that I will say, if I'm going to kind of put this all together, is that even if the less likely thing does happen and this market does start to rally back towards the downside, right? We start to pull back to say 93,000 to 99,000. Sorry, someone's spamming my phone, dude. My God. 1 second. Okay. Sorry. Okay. I forgot I had a meeting 12 minutes ago, but it's okay. I'll just push that one back. But yeah, even if what was I saying? Bitcoin's price does come back towards these lower levels. I'm actually not super concerned about it. It is concerning for sure, but I think there's a very real world in which we then see Bitcoin's price really rip back up towards the upside. Like that starts to become a much higher possibility because again, remember at that point, if we do see Bitcoin's price break down, all of these liquidations here. Let's go back over here. All of these liquidations on the 30-day, dude, they'd be massive. Like we're already at 11.7 billion. I think this would shoot to like 25 billion or so. And man, I mean, that would be real opportunistic, in my opinion, for the market, especially when you consider something like the daily RSI at that point would have plunged to oversold territory for the very first time. I think it goes lower than we were back here in that instance. I think we're looking at an RSI about like 17, 16, one of the lowest, probably the lowest level this year that the RSI has gotten to. While we see all those downside liquidations massively available, I think this market would really run off of that. Now, it would be concerning. I would start to consider that we are getting towards the end of the bull market if this event does happen. I would start to say that, a top is probably getting close and maybe some sort of double top could be on the way. But all in all, again, I still am just very, very much so under the belief that we still do have room to work to the upside because there is so much still so much opportunity for these market manipulators to push this market upwards. And that always is my thesis. And a lot of people say, well, Tyler, there's always going to be people betting the market's going to go down. That's not true. In these most manipulated markets, what you're going to notice is that oftentimes, if you're like this, right? Say the bull market's coming to an end. This is what I think, at least from studying lizards. I'm a lizard zoologist, biologist, marine enologist, colologist, and what'll happen in a market is if you're getting to the end of a bull market, what oftentimes it'll look like in a highly manipulated asset class is that you'll be going sideways for a little while. It'll stack up all of these short liquidations to the top side because everyone is aware that the bull market's coming to an end. And this is kind of like the trap for all of these people to bet that the market's going to go down. Maybe it'll give you some little moves like this to make you think that's what's about to happen. Then those liquidations to the top side get bigger and bigger. Then we go bang, bang. And then that bull market starts. And this is what I genuinely believe or the bear market starts. This is what I believe the end of the bull market is going to look like. I think a blow off top is going to happen because there's the most incentive in crypto history now for it to happen than there's ever been. I'm not going to bet a lot on it, right? Like I'm still taking profits even in this moment, but I just am convinced that this is what it's going to look like because it would be the perfect scenario for the market manipulators. They go up, they push it up, they smash these long traders, they dump on retailers, retail jumps back in and FOMO's in, they dump their bags, then the market goes into the bear market, and then they start to push back down on some of these prices. That's what I think is going to happen. And so that's why I'm still convinced that even in a situation, in a scenario like we're in right now, I still do believe it's extremely likely that Bitcoin does give us another run to the upside. Now, sure, you may say, well, Tyler, couldn't that have been this, right? Couldn't that have been something that looks like this, for say? Boom, where the market's kind of doing this and a little bit of this, and it bang, and we push up high. Yeah, it's very possible. The problem with that is, though, is that we've been allowed too much recovery. We've seen recovery here. We've seen recovery here. And we also have macroeconomic fundamental things that are happening that could impact this market in a positive way, right? We've been obviously seeing a lot of what Bessent's been saying, right? Bessent even posted something like, what was that earlier? Yeah, Treasury Secretary Bessent says a $2,000 tariff dividend will go to Americans earning under $100,000. Major tariff announcements are expected in the coming days. We actually saw another announcement where he was saying that there were big tax breaks or tax refunds that were expected in 2026. So there's a lot of positive things that are happening right now. We got quantitative easing ending. We got quantitative tightening ending. Quantitative easing could be around the corner. Interest rates cuts. I mean, all of these things could easily push this market back up one more time. And that's a part of why I don't particularly think this would be the move I'm describing, because we've been allowed too much recovery time right here, right? We've been allowed too much recovery time. So I don't know. I just think that we've seen this market give us blow off tops a lot. And I think giving us a blow off top would make so much sense in this market, knowing how much they could benefit from it, right? How much the market could destroy all of these traders. Because even look at Bitcoin, even after everything that's happened, there are still more long trades or more trades that will be destroyed if this market moves up than if it moves back down. We see more to 150K than 57,000, which I find to be a crazy statistic at the top of a bull market. Look at how much there is just at 118,000. Look at that candle. It's insanity, right? And so because of that, I think that's the more likely scenario here. And so my game plan remains the same when it comes to Bitcoin. Buy the lows, sell the highs. And I'm just going to keep doing that over and over and over again. We are seeing the market holding up well. Bitcoin is holding up well. If we actually do extrapolate this all the way over, you can see that this is a key zone of support previously, and we've not broken macro structure quite yet. So Bitcoin is still in a pretty solid spot, and I'm willing to accumulate these lows. Now, am I 100% confident that we're going to push up towards these levels? No, I'm not 100% confident. I'd say I'm 70% confident. I was about 80% confident, 90% confident we were here. Now that we've started to break some short-term structure, I'm about 70% confident. My confidence is wavering, but I am still confident. And so we'll kind of see how it plays. But all in all, my game plan remains the same. Scoop the lows, sell the highs. And that's what I'll continue to do. If we look at my buy-sell bubble sheet, what you can see is that's exactly what I've been doing, right? Bitcoin's price has been kind of operating in the same way for the last year or so, and I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. I told you all at the very beginning of 2025, I'm going to document every single time that I buy and sell crypto. You guys will be able to see it right here. I document all of my buys here, and you can see it. Boom. Every single time that Bitcoin's price has fallen, I've accumulated. Every single time that is pumped, I've taken profits. And I'm going to stick to the code right here. I'm going to stick to the game plan. I've done some sizable accumulation over the last couple of weeks, and I hope it plays out. But worst case scenario, it doesn't play out. Bitcoin's price pulls all the way back into a bear market. But guess what? We've taken so much profit off the table at these higher levels that we're fully in profit now. I mean, we're sitting in profit. I don't even have an initial investment in Bitcoin anymore. My average cost is $33,000. And so it's a situation where it's like, if I'm wrong, I'm losing profit. If I'm right, I'm gaining a lot more profit. But at the end of the day, on both sides of that equation, there's profit. And that's the goal, right? And so when it comes to Bitcoin, I'm going to continue to do what I do. I'm not buying right now. I don't particularly see a need to buy right now. I bought Bitcoin at 99,000 something, I think. $99,000 on the money. I announced that. That was on November 4th. Small purchases, nothing super crazy, but I bought Bitcoin at 99. I bought Bitcoin at 1,000. I was accumulating, or 1,000 is crazy, 101,000. So I scooped these lows already. So I'm just going to kind of wait and see what happens. I really don't particularly think it's a great time to buy, because I think it's like, if you've been buying recently, right? Like if you were able to scoop these lows right here, I don't think doubling down on another accumulation right here makes a ton of sense, because we're cliff dwelling. Bitcoin has a 55 to the upside, 45 to the downside. We're about to flip a coin and just go in a direction. And so to me, it's like we can either get better accumulations down here, or we can get some real good profit taking right here. I wouldn't be exposing myself to even more risk to a coin flip right now, personally speaking. I don't think that's a great idea. So that's kind of where I am. That's kind of where I am with all of this when it comes to Bitcoin, and how that applies to altcoins is almost the exact same way. I'm still under the belief that Bitcoin is in control of the market. I think if Bitcoin's price does really break back above this level, say give us a push to around $120,000 and reclaim some of this lost momentum, this altcoin market is really going to rally. Bitcoin has showed weakness recently to the altcoins, and we started to see Bitcoin dominance breaking down. For example, Bitcoin dominance had been following this trend for 3 months. What happened though? Bitcoin dominance lost this trend, came back up to it, and is currently getting rejected off of it. In an ideal world, in my opinion, Bitcoin dominance comes back down and starts to break structure. Ideally, what I'm looking for is Bitcoin dominance to break 59.5%, because if it does that, structure has now officially broken, and altcoins can really start to give us some performance. Like we can really see this altcoin market gain some traction, and I think that would be very good. I think that would kind of work at the same time. Bitcoin breaks up, Bitcoin dominance breaks down. Over the macro, boom, next thing you know, you got altcoins rallying. And so what am I going to do with altcoins right now? I'm going to mimic Bitcoin. So for example, when Bitcoin's price comes back down into an accumulation zone for me, I'm going to accumulate my top altcoins, my safe altcoins. So for example, if Bitcoin comes back down into this gold zone, sure, I'll do a little bit more buying, no problem, because I took some profit off of Bitcoin right here. Matter of fact, when was that? Was that yesterday or the day before yesterday? Yeah. So when Bitcoin was at 110,000, no, it could not have been on $110,000. Oh, that was on November 10th. Yeah. So on November 10th, as Bitcoin's price rallied back up towards $107,000 or so, roughly, I posted in the Discord. I said, I'm heavily considering doing another take profit right now on these purchases that I did right here. I said, I just don't like the way these liquidations blow a smell right now. I might just be being paranoid. I don't know. And I was like, fuck it. I'm going to do it. And I took some profits off of Bitcoin at 106.5K from these 99K purchases. So we did a little purchase right here. We took some profit right here. So if Bitcoin wants to decide to come back down to these levels, I'll happily throw my profit back in here and just get some free Bitcoin. That's all that is at that point, because I'm reinvesting the profit. It's just free Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin comes back down to this gold zone, yes, I will buy a little bit of Bitcoin, but I'm also going to translate that into buying a little bit of Ethereum, for example. I'll happily buy a little bit of ETH, not a lot, because ETH is teetering on breaking to the downside of this. And then things get weird. I think that then does create some sort of more macro descending channel like this. Shit gets a little bit complicated at that point. So not a lot of ETH, but some ETH. I definitely would buy a little bit of Solana, because I think that would put it towards the bottom side of this zone descending channel. Maybe a little bit of XRP if it can make it all the way back down to like $2.09, but that would be quite difficult. And yeah, that'd probably be it. So I'll probably buy the Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana XRP pair right now. And yeah, just probably play the game like that. So the only purchases that I'm doing on altcoins will happen if I'm purchasing Bitcoin. If I'm not purchasing Bitcoin, I'm not purchasing altcoins. I just believe Bitcoin's in control of the market. It's going to decide where we go. So I'm going to base my decisions off of what Bitcoin does, if that makes sense. Now, when it comes to microcaps, I'm not really doing much with microcaps right now. The only one that I did scoop a little bit of yesterday was Constellation Network. It was DAG. Outside of that, I've not really bought many of them, and I just believe it's too risky of a time right now. When the market's sitting on a cliff, whenever you have, again, a 55% to the upside, 45% to the downside, I don't want to be playing around with microcaps right now, because if this 45% chance does happen, which is a very reasonable thing to assume could happen, we're going to see microcaps get really destroyed, and I don't see a point in putting money in them. But also, if Bitcoin's price rallies, I think it's going to pump first. Bitcoin's going to break first, and then also rally. So I'll have my opportunity to rotate if I need to. So to me, it's like I can still capitalize on the majority of the upside from my microcaps without taking a risk of this downside on my microcaps. So I'm not rotating cash into them right now. I'm looking for the best opportunity, and the best opportunity is Bitcoin. Things are still very risky. That is something to consider. Things are very risky. Bitcoin's sitting directly below a massive range that it had been in for a while. So I'm just sitting back watching, and I'm playing this market very, very patiently. Because if I'm right and Bitcoin does give us some sort of blow off top, I want to be positioned properly. I want to be positioned correctly, and I don't want to be taking any big risks leading up to that. Okay. So that's kind of where I am with everything. That's where I am in the market. That's what I'm doing with altcoins. That's what I'm doing with microcaps. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. Do you agree with me? And I would actually like to know what you think is going to happen. So I personally think there's a 55% chance we pop up, 45% chance we pop down. So I'm going to ask all of you, if you think that we're going to break to the upside first, put a number 1 in the chat. If you think we're going to break down first, put a number 2 in the chat. Very curious to see what you guys are feeling. One, two, one, one, two, one. This is a delayed fake breakout. We will pump December to January, then we'll reset February. Interesting. 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, then 1, 2, 1, 2. Cool. So it's very balanced, and I think that's a good thing. It means that the market is doing exactly what it's supposed to. It means the market is doing exactly what it's supposed to. When you have a coin flip like this, it is good to see that sentiment is also at a bit of a coin flip. Some people, a little bit more people think we're going up, a little bit less people think we're going down, but there are still people who think we're going down. And that means that the market is very likely in this coin flip sentiment that we're expecting. I am very curious, actually, now that we mention it, heavily in fear still. So that might give you a little bit of favor towards the top side for sure. I mean, the fact that we're at these low levels is kind of crazy to me, honestly, especially after seeing what we saw from bubbles. I mean, that's yeah, I mean, that's a little bit weird. So that does give me a little bit of favor. Maybe we push up to 56%. But no, it's very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, hopefully you guys have enjoyed the analysis this morning. I am going to answer some questions from the chat for the next little bit here before I do have to go ahead and start jumping on some of these meetings. So what I do want you to do is leave some questions in the chat. Leave some questions in the chat. And if you did find the 30 minutes of analysis that we did this morning super valuable, if you thought it was helpful, please put a 3 in the chat for me. I'll know to do more of these more often. In the meantime, while we are doing this, while you guys are leaving your questions and putting your 3s in the chat if you find it valuable, I do want to shout a couple things out. So if any of you are trading and you know what you're doing, you're not a beginner. If you're a beginner, just plug your ears. Don't listen to what I'm about to say. But if any of you are trading, you know what you're doing, you trade on big money, what I am going to recommend is that you go check out the link to BTCC down below, because we are currently running an event that ends in just 3 days, in which you can get up to $1,500 worth of USDT, plain USDT, if you trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, XLM, Solana, or SWI. I know many of you do trade those things who are traders, so feel free to check the link out down below, and you're going to get up to $1,500 in USDT in those if you trade those, and you're going to get up to $10,000 in bonuses and rewards. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But again, if you're new to crypto, don't involve yourself with leverage trading. It's a complete waste of your time. Do not do it. You're going to lose a lot of money. Okay. The next thing I do want to shout you guys out about is the crypto school. So throughout this stream, I've showed you guys a lot of, what I'm doing, what I'm buying, and it's all throughout this Discord server. This is what's called the crypto school. And it's a platform that we've developed over the last couple of years where we teach people how to get better at crypto. And that's simply that. And you can see how that's resulted. I mean, look at the amount of just sheer gains that we've seen the community just printing. Even through this month, when the market sucks, I can scroll endlessly, literally endlessly, guys. And I'm just going to scroll and scroll and scroll. And you can see all of the gains that this community has been generating for so long. I mean, it's been years of this community absolutely printing gains. So feel free to check the link out to that down below. As a matter of fact, one person who uses the code NOV12, like November 12th, I'm going to give you 20% off if you want to sign up for the school. People who are in the school probably are in the chat here, and you can let them know if you think it's worth signing up. But I do believe it's one of the best platforms on earth to learn how to get better at crypto, and there's a ton in there for you. The last thing I do want to shout you out about is my second YouTube channel. Many of you may not know, I have a second YouTube channel where I talk about business. As many of you may or may not know, I run a company called Fluence. It's a multi-million-dollar agency that manages creators. And because of that, I was like, you know what? I want to document the journey a little bit. So I've been documenting the journey of, going places, traveling, running business, giving my thoughts about business and stuff like that. I will leave that link down below as well. It's called Tyler Hill Unlocked. And it's, again, where I post a lot more personal stuff, just like I do over on my Instagram. So feel free to check out all these things. Traders, check out BTCC. People who want to learn about crypto, check this out. And if you're interested in what I have going on behind the scenes, feel free to check out my second channel, Tyler Hill Unlocked. But without further ado, let's go ahead and let's answer some questions.